I know the arguments which will be brought in by those who today oppose the action of the Council. I've already heard them say that only a few more days would have been enough to come to an agreement. A few days, whereas hundreds of Syrians are dying every day, and it's no longer possible to wait. As long as this draft resolution represents the broadest possible consensus of the international community by supporting the efforts of the regional actors to find a peaceful solution to the crisis. For 10 days, we have been accused of trying to overthrow a regime to prepare for a military invention. This is obviously false. I have said today is a sad day, but we will not stop here. We have no right to abandon the Syrian people to its tragic fate. I say to Syrians that France will continue to work in all bodies, with all partners sharing its values, and towards the objective which should bring us together today, put an end to the Syrian nightmare.
Today, the Security Council again failed to assume its responsibilities and to live up to its mandate, the maintenance of international peace and security. In short, the people in Syria and the region have been let down again, and this is a crying shame. Even more so in the light of the recent massacres in Homs, and even more so in the light of one of the bloodiest days in the Arab Spring, and even more so on the tragic 30th anniversary of the Hama massacre. And this is the real scandal. Mr. President, Germany's position is very clear. This Council should urge Assad to stop the killing. His regime has to put an immediate end to the violence. It has to stop the massive, gross, and systematic violation of human rights.
The United States is disgusted that a couple members of this Council continue to prevent us from fulfilling our sole purpose here, addressing an ever-deepening crisis in Syria and a growing threat to regional peace and security. For months, this Council has been held hostage by a couple members. These members stand behind empty arguments and individual interests while delaying and seeking to strip bare any text that would pressure Assad to change his actions. This intransigence is even more shameful when you consider that at least one of these members continues to deliver weapons to Assad. The United States has long said that it's past time that this Council assumed its responsibilities and imposed tough, targeted sanctions and an arms embargo on the Assad regime, as many individual countries have already done. But this draft didn't even do that. The text simply supported an Arab League plan that Assad himself already agreed to uphold, and the subsequent Arab League decision towards a peaceful resolution of the crisis. The co-sponsors of this draft have truly gone the last mile to try to reach consensus on a draft that already more than accommodates the concerns of a few Council members about the use of force and sanctions. Subsequent attempts today to introduce wrecking amendments at the very 11th hour, only to further delay Council action, are unforgivable. Since yesterday, the Syrian government has waged and intensified an especially horrific campaign in Homs to murder hundreds, including women and children, with artillery and tanks and other indiscriminate violence. Syrian forces continue to prevent hundreds of innocent and injured civilians from seeking medical help. The international community must protect the Syrian people from this abhorrent brutality. But a couple members of this Council remain steadfast in their willingness to sell out the Syrian people and shield a craven tyrant. The United States, by contrast, stands fully and irrevocably with the long-suffering people of Syria. Since these same two Council members vetoed the last resolution on Syria, we have heard reports from the High Commissioner for Human Rights that the regime may be committing crimes against humanity. From Arab League Secretary General al-Arabi and from Qatari Prime Minister Hamad bin Jassim, who noted that the Assad regime has, quote, failed to make any serious effort to cooperate with the Arab League, and that Assad's, quote, killing machine continues effectively unabated, end quote. Since these two members last vetoed a resolution on Syria, an estimated 3,000 more civilians have been killed. 3,000. Another almost 250 killed just yesterday. Many thousands more have been held captive and tortured by Assad and his Shabia gangs. Since these two members last vetoed a resolution, however, and despite the absence of Security Council action, we've seen more and more Syrians speak out in peaceful demonstrations against the regime. Once again, the courageous people of Syria can clearly see who on this council supports their yearning for liberty and universal rights and who does not. And during this season of change, the people of the Middle East can now see clearly which nations have chosen to ignore their calls for democracy and instead prop up desperate dictators.